Hello everyone, Verb here. At the time of this video's release, the Tamamo cross banner probably will have just started, and just like the Find Motion banner, I'd like to go and give my thoughts on the character and look at every aspect of this character in a way that's probably a little bit too deep and a little bit too nerdy. So without further ado, let's begin a way too in-depth guide to Tamamo Cross. Before we start, let's just give everyone, including you, what you're really looking for, which is validation. We all love validation. So if she is your Oshi, as it is for a lot of people because of her participation in Cinderella Grey, an incredible show, she is viable. You're not going to break your account by getting her. She is a viable jack of all trades that is good in many different roles. If you have 30,000 carats, or in this case, because we are getting some free pulls, it's estimated to be about 20,000 carats, and it doesn't mess with your pull plan. I highly suggest making a pull plan. Feel free to pull for this Uma. This Uma is also available in the first year anniversary selector ticket for $20 US. So if you don't get her in the 60 pulls, it may be better to wait for the first year anniversary depending on how many carats you have. If you have enough carats to get either the Matekani Futakaru, the Narita Top Road, or the Find Motion banner, or the Nice Nature banner, one of those four, and you pulled on at least one of those four to get them MLB card ready for Mant, I think you have enough carats to pull for this character. So let's get some housekeeping out of the way. Her surface aptitudes is mostly just turf. Her distance aptitudes are medium and long with the force and mile, and her strategy is pace chaser, late surger, and end closer. If the rest of them, she can't really run without having to uber force and get multiple sparks on. So you're looking at it for the longer distance races for any of the regular gambling strategies. Okay, so her stat bonuses, she has stamina and power, 20% stamina, 10% power, which is not the greatest stamina bonus, or not the greatest stat bonuses, but it's very good for long distance tracks in particular. Reason being is you essentially want to press the power button a lot of times, which is weird because normally this is a speed and wit game. So for normal decks, a 3-speed, 2-wit, and Rico deck for miles and mediums should suffice. The general just regular training effectiveness power taps should be enough to get you to the 800 stamina with some stamina sparks. You can also substitute one of your speed cards with a power card and run some speed sparks instead. And for longs, you generally either want to go the double power route or the singular stamina route, because the stamina cards will be a little bit more effective because of the 20% stamina bonus. If you do not have good cards, really, and you're just really working off of regular SR cards, there's some good SR cards, of course, but generally you're going to probably want for miles and mediums to run the double power build with a single wit card and a Rico. And for longs, you generally want to run the double stamina build just to hit the stamina requirements that are required. Both of these will probably require speed sparks because she does not have any speed bonus, and your wit will suffer a little bit, but wit honestly is not the worst stat to dump compared to stamina. Okay, so those are some options for builds. Obviously it's going to be tailored to each track, but just some basic ideas on how the flow of the game is going to be with her. Her ultimate, White Lightning, coming through. Let's begin. So bolt down the track like lightning while well positioned or aiming for the front from mid-pack on a straight in the second half of the race. This is a very complicated way of saying in the second half of the race on a straight, if you're in 6th or 7th or third or fourth. If you're in 6th or 7th or 2nd and 3rd and you have an overtake target, your alt will proc. So let's get through this. All right, so second half of the race, anytime, this is the Nakayama track, for example, the next champions meeting. That's happening right now, actually. It is anytime past the mid-race, 50% mark, it can proc. Now, however, it will proc on a straight, so it'll either proc in this part of the straight here in the mid-race, or it will proc in the home stretch. Now, it will proc at the first time that it meets every single condition. So, like I said, the first time that it will meet the condition, and the condition is not very difficult. So the condition is 2nd or 3rd or 6th or 7th. It's technically second, or it's between second and third and between sixth and seventh, but it happens in all 4 of those positions. So if you're in any of those, and is overtake is a little bit more complicated, but it's pretty simple to actually execute. The game checks 8 lengths in front of your character, which is 20 meters, and it just goes and it looks at each UMA that's in front of you. So 8 lengths in front of you, it asks, are you faster than this UMA? It does a bit more than that in the coding, but essentially if you are faster than that UMA, it calculates, are you fast enough that you would overtake this UMA in the next 15 seconds of the race? If so, you have what's called an overtake target. When that happens, you trigger White Lightning, and you get a target speed and acceleration increase. This is essentially a triumphant pulse with a bit of acceleration. So this is at worst a mid-race skill. It can be a mid-race skill that gives speed carryover. It can be a skill that gives acceleration. So it's either a 0.1 acceleration, a 0.35 target speed mid-race skill, or if its speed carries over, it's a speed carryover of 0.35 with the acceleration bonus. That's kind of the God roll. What generally procs it? Well, generally, if your UMA has a very high wit roll, you will have overtake targets because you will be running faster than pretty much every UMA on the map. Any mid-race speed skill, like Professor, in this case, is straight, so it would be like Beeline Burst would proc it. Anything like It's On would proc it. And any enemy UMA rolling a low wit roll would cause it to go to slower than you and would cause you to trigger an overtake target. As well as any enemy UMA that is running out of stamina on the acceleration zone would also proc it because they would very quickly lower their target speed. And then, of course, any acceleration skill generally will cause you to be faster. If your acceleration skill hits before another one, it will calculate it as well, and it will find that you have an overtake target. So it is very easy to proc. It is very consistent to proc as long as you get the positioning. Okay? So you have an ultimate that is pretty consistent that happens in 6-7 or 3-4. All right, she has a lot of skills. A lot of her skills are universal. Her main benefit, probably the best thing in her kit, is the fact that she has the first instance of Tail Held High Gold, which is Tail 9. Tail Held High is an incredible skill that works in pretty much any track and also any race style, because you will always be activating mid-race skills. Mid-race skills are the key to winning. Tail Held High essentially turns a Professor of Curvature, if it's the second proc, into a double Professor of Curvature because it has a velocity equal to Professor of Curvature. So it's like the It's On Professor of Curvature combo. You now proc Professor of Curvature, you pass an UMA for It's On triggers, and then that is the second mid-race skill, and then Tail Held High procs, or Tail 9 procs, and now you have 3 target speed increases all at once. Incredible mid-race. She also has the Stamina Spark for Nakayama, Kyoto, and Hanshin. These are specific quests, essentially, secret events that if you run the Nakayama Kimpai, the Kyoto Kimpai, or if you choose the bottom option in a 50-50 hint that happens like probably 70-80% of the time, just knowing from winning ticket that those random events happen most times, you get their respective courses. Notably, Nakayama and Kyoto will be disabled during Mant because all the secret events are disabled in Mant. Tail Held High, if you win the Senior Autumn Triple Crown while not and make a new track, as well as the Takarazaka Keenan in the senior year, you will get couple hints, 3 hints for Tail Held High, which will help Tail 9 become incredibly cheap. So running the Autumn Triple Crown in almost every single race is very important, and because it's the Autumn Triple Crown, you should, on a good run, pretty much win this every single time. There shouldn't be any problems with trying to finish these 3, as well as the Tazaraka Keenan in the senior year. All right, distance-based skills for mile races, which she has E-Mile, you can get updrafters. So even though she's built for E-Mile, you can go from E to A, and then you can pick up her updrafters, and she has it. She's really meant to be a jack-of-all-trades UMA. Thunderbolt Step is not a great skill in medium because it's basically the same thing as running a surround skill, so it's like an UMA stand proc. And it also only works in mediums. It is technically an acceleration, but it's not. I mean, you have to wait. You're gambling on the timing, and you're gambling on the conditions actually procking. Up tempo is mostly for pace chasers. It is a front half skill for medium races, so it's kind of leaning towards the mediums. Notably, the medium races, you will most likely not be running end closers because you'll not be running end closers for Tamamo Cross because medium races generally are corner tracks and not straight tracks. So up tempo being a pace skill is actually kind of useful. For pace chaser skills, you also get a white recovery. For what it's worth, it is a good white recovery, preferred position. Unfortunately, we do not have many cards that have gourmand yet, but it is just something a little bit to help out the pace chaser 11% debuff on to stamina. Pace chaser probably is our weakest of the 3 roles, but it is an option, especially on shorter tracks. For late surger, not only do you have Tail 9, which is an incredible mid-race skill, which is really good for gamblers, you have Fast and Furious, which is actually just another professor of curvature. Not only that, because it's the mid-race skill, it is going to proc Tail 9. So just as the late surger, you have Fast and Furious, and you have Tail 9, so any other mid-race skill will proc your Tail 9. So, incredible late surger. It's almost, I will speak on her viability later, but she is a very comfy late surger builder that can be ran on almost any track. Notably, I didn't say this before, I probably should have, her ultimate is track agnostic, so it really doesn't matter which track it is. It still will proc in the second half of the race. Now, her other skills will be based on tracks of which role you want to run, but her ultimate is good in pretty much every single track because you will hit those positions at some point in the race. And you get acceleration and you get speed no matter where it procs. For end closer, she's one of the few Umas that have straightaway spurt. This is incredibly important because you do not have to gamble on Sweep Tosho SSR, and you can use your energy borrowing a card for Umastan or getting that through Sparks as well, and using the largest speed or wit card available to get as high of stats as possible. So having straightaway spurt right out of the gate is incredible because unlike Gold Chip, you can basically just never have to 50-50 a run ever again. And she joins the ranks of Narita Taishin, and her actual bonuses are better than Taishin's except for the 10% speed, but having 20% stamina for long races is better than having 20% guts, honestly. So Taishin's issue is she has a very hard career. Her Tamamo Cross's career is not as hard, as well as the having better bonuses. So a lot easier to build an end closer. Obviously is not encroaching shadow, but having the white straightaway spurt is pretty good. Notably, we're going to see a lot more of these Umas later on. She has an additional fast learner chance, so she has 2 events that can proc fast learner status. The standard one where you just get all stats 5 and skill points of 30 that you get on every single Uma, but she also has merchandise in Mojo, which I believe is a 1 in 4, if I recall, to get it. But it is a weighted random outcome. It's leaned towards the speed 20 wit 10 or speed 10 wit 5, but she basically has a 2 times chance to get fast learner over most of the other Umas. It is not as good as my Top Gun where you literally have it by having enough wit, but it's possible. So fast learner, incredibly powerful. She gets it twice as often. CM viability. Unfortunately, the current cup is just now starting. You can force one really quickly. I don't suggest it, but Capricorn Cup is a sprint, so she has sprint G. It's not really viable, but you can force her into it, and pretty much any Uma works in the short if they have short A or sprint A. The next one is a dirt. Dirt's very difficult because she has dirt F or dirt G. So the next 2 CMs, unfortunately, not really meant for it. However, Fast and Furious and Tail 9, very good, and pretty much every CM that she can get the aptitudes to. The one after those 2 is Pisces Cup, which is going to be another long race, a 3200. It's pretty close to what the Gemini's 3200, 3600 was. Going to be a pretty hard CM to manage. She does have Hanshin Racecourse built in, and you will build her as an end closer most likely because it is a very good spurt map. Not really much else to say. except that you can also just build her late surger. You can build her late surger on pretty much every track because it's just about mid-race skills, but she has 2 built-in mid-race skills. She has a built-in mid-race skill for an end closer. She'll have Hanshin Racecourse to help with the stamina, and you just kind of load up on staminas, which will proc in the mid-race, which will proc tail 9, and go from there. Aries Cup will be after that. This will possibly be in the middle of the month, so the Nakayama race course may be disabled, but it has bad spurt timing, so you most likely will build as a late surger, just popping the two mid-race skills that come with the late surger and going from there. The Taurus Cup reboot will be on Tokyo 2400. It also has bad spurt timing. It is a medium track. Most medium tracks are corner tracks, so you can run her as a late surger or a pace chaser. Same things. Mostly, honestly, her alt and the fact she can be built as a late surger means that doesn't really matter which track she's on as long as she has the aptitudes. She is CM viable. So, the thing that I've heard a lot of people say is she a master of none? If she's a jack of all trades, she's a master of none. Kind of, but not enough to be really concerned about. So, is she the best pace chaser in the world? She is no Christmas Oguri Cap. No. She is not a Taiki Shuttle where if it is a corner mile or a corner medium, her alt is just incredible and she can wheelchair you into the victory with 40 plus wins in a champions meet. She is not that character. She is a gambler, true and true, a late surger end closer, or a pace chaser. She lets you play the way that you want to play, but she does not have an innate built-in ultimate that will immediately be incredible out of the gate on its own. She does offer a lot of comfiness. I've talked about this before, but the reason why I think Winning Ticket's one of the most fun characters to play is because the character has everything you absolutely need in a late surger built into the kit itself, except Uma Stan, but honestly, it's not necessarily required. But Winning Ticket has Nimble Navigator, she has Position Pilfer, she has Slick Surge all built into her kit. The same thing kind of applies to Tamamo Cross. The only thing she's really missing is On Your Left or Slick Surge. So you basically just get a nice Nature Wit card and then put it on her, and then she has absolutely everything else you need in the late surger position. She's incredibly comfy. She has 3 separate tracks where you can help with stamina for the long tracks, and I mean she has 2 mid-race skills built in for her own mid-race gold skill. So you have the ways to get into the position that you want to proc your alt. Everything's already built into the kit. Even if you build her end closer, if you build her late surger, if you build her pace chaser, she just has a lot of comfort built in. That's really her strength, and she's going to be viable for a very long time, as will most Umas be, but it's honestly not that much of a problem. Late surgers eventually will become the best long CM role with the release of Symbolic Chris S, and then also there's a Wit card after that has the same one, Lose Yourself. When this happens, she will become very good as a late surger. You normally build her as an end closer now, but in a year or so, you will most likely transition her into the late surger role because you will proc Lose Yourself and On Your Left, as well as all your mid-race skills, and you'll be able to get all that with all the skill points you get. And she will be in the realm of possibilities for late surgers. At that time, there's so many characters out that you can pretty much pick whichever late surger you want. And there's, of course, going to be a top meta Uma, and she will not be that top meta Uma, but she will be viable. And that's the point, is that almost every Uma is viable. For end closers, she has straightaway spurt. And a lot of people are saying, hey, well, straightaway spurt, I mean, eventually she's not going to be the top of the meta for end closer either. That's true. The reasoning is that straightaway spurt eventually gets outcrept by encroaching shadow. Right now, it is a very protected skill by end closers. It's not on any cards, and the only cards that it gets put onto is Hishi Amazon Power, Narita Taishin Wit, and the recently released in Japan Gold Ship Stamina. However, if you look, this is year 3, year 4, year 4.5. You have 2 years before the fact that you have one of your skills being a white version of the gold skill that everyone looks for. Honestly, it doesn't matter. Like, you're going to have 2 years of this as an end closer. By then, you can transition her into a late surger. And again, as time goes on, as we get into year 3, into year 4, as they're getting into year 5, Japan's figuring out that either you're top of the meta, you have every single card in the game, you're competing at the highest level, or you're just having fun with the game. That's one. And two, your cards matter a lot more than the Umas you make, because your ultimate, as long as it's passable, it's fine. And you're getting like 10, 15, 20 skills, 25 skills, 30 skills. Those are mostly going to come from the cards and your inherits and not your Uma itself. So the fact she has a white straightaway spurt is nothing to really worry about, considering, yes, it's nice now and that you'll get it from cards later. I would not worry about that either. Again, this is a power card. Power cards generally aren't the greatest things in the world because they mess up the flow of your build. The Narita Taishin card also is a no stat bonus wit card, so it does not have the greatest wit output. So it doesn't have a wit bonus, doesn't have a speed bonus, so she is a little bit troublesome to run. And Gold Chip Stamina is a stamina card, which will be good on longs. So honestly, year 4.5 is probably the time where people start running cards. But again, most likely, if I'm remembering correctly, people still use Super Greek in Japan. So it's like, really, I mean, you're fine. Straightaway Spurt's a good skill. Be glad she has it. So, in other words, if she's your Oshi, pull her. You get some free pulls, see how it goes. I would wait until you run out of free pulls before you go and fetch the whole 200 skills, but she is a very viable late surger and end closer in particular. She can be run in pace, and she's good in any of the long tracks, so don't let anyone tell you that she will break your account, because she certainly won't. There is much worse Umas in the game, and even those worse Umas are viable. So, this has been Burb. Hope you enjoy. Good luck on your pulls. Burb out.